So, Dr. Thomas Girst, I'd like to welcome you and thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this discussion about Indo-German relations in the field of visual arts. And Dr. Girst is the head of cultural engagement at BMW Group in Munich, and also somebody who's been very involved with the visual arts in India. But when I look at all your other qualifications, Dr. Girst, I look at, in one of your earlier avatars in life, that you even worked at an art gallery in New York, and you have been a journalist, you are an author, even with a book on Marcel Duchamp, and you teach at universities in Munich and in Zurich. Then I feel that there are a lot of areas in which one could really tap your expertise. But to start first and foremost really with, the role of the corporate in the support of visual arts. And here, just by way of introduction and relevance to BMW and art in India, contemporary art, I'd like to let our audience know that BMW has been a major corporate supporter of the Kochi Museries Biennial, in fact, from its very inception. Am I right?
Yes.
And also of the India Art Fair in Delhi. Germany seems to have an abundance of corporate art collectors and sponsors of museum shows and biennales and so on. And in India, there is a dearth, but of course, these are two very different countries and very different cultures. So from your experience of being here and engaging with both corporates as well as with the art community, do you have a perspective on what could be a meaningful intervention for corporates in India wanting to perhaps get into engagement, and how would they engage? What would be meaningful?
Just at the very beginning, I want to thank Sonia Prasha for setting this up. I think that the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, just to be hosting this sort of event, I think is great, because we can learn from each other. It's important to have that dialogue through that horrendous pandemic, that has made things worse for the arts. Let's just face it, and let's just say it at the very beginning. It's the arts and culture are in dire straits, but we are looking into making the best of it, or looking how we can develop things in the right direction. And you hit the nail on the head with your first question in terms of what could corporations do in India, in an Indian context, in regard, to the arts, to contemporary art. Because as we both know, and the artists that you represent and the gallery that you had been running in Berlin, we know that there's a worldwide interest in contemporary art coming from India. There's a market for it. And there's people like you, who are doing that, or friends of mine, who run a gallery in Bangalore and others that I know from the fairs. Every time I'm being asked to address an audience in India when we host a panel where we talk about contemporary art, it always boils down to what can corporations do? Because as you said, when we look at Germany, and that is really an exception, and it's amazing. It's 9 or even more now. It's over 10 billion euros going into the arts on a federal, state, and local and city level. Those are amazing numbers. On top of that, you have 500 million euros going to the arts on the side of corporations and foundations and so forth. That is, I think, an amazing number. I think much.
Did you say 5 billion from corporates?
No, 500 million from corporations.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's still a lot, 500 million from corporations.
Oh my God.
500 million, but it's 10 billion euros,
Yeah.
10 billion euros from the government. The world, there was a whole interest, of course, to showcase that, there is culture and there is culture without censorship, culture beyond nationalities, culture that binds nations together like the European Union does. So I
So,
think,
Thomas, I mean, then India should be really in the moment where they want to do that with all the nationalist tendencies. Terrible of me to say that, but I mean, then if that's a reason, then now is the moment for India to prove that.
yeah, I agree. Actually, the two things that you said, one of the smartest things that I've read when it comes to the pandemic, and very early on, it's actually Arundhati Roy in the Financial Times. And we don't always have to agree with Arundhati Roy, but the thing is, she wrote something where she said, look at the pandemic as a portal. We can either go through this portal with all our, horrendousness, with all our, I don't know how she phrased it precisely, with all of our nationalisms and all these things, with all that luggage that we have when it comes to hatred and when it comes to prejudice. We can go through this portal of the pandemic with all of that baggage that we have, or we can carry light luggage. We can envision a better world. And I think what better place to envision an alternative world, the possibilities of a world, than the arts. And one thing that I want to really say, Ranjana, going back to your first question, is that, and I always say that because when I'm in India on stage, people say, Thomas, you got to, everything you say, you got to get more corporations to give money to the arts. It's in every post-industrial society, it's a fact. Ever since Richard Florida defined the creative class in the 1970s, the creative class, it's a fact that in post-industrial societies, the creative class is a driving economic factor. We don't have to go into hiding thinking, this is the arts and here's the business. Yeah. It is a fact that the creative class is an economic driving factor for post-industrial societies. Now with India, where you have 1 or 2 museums and 1.3 million or billion people, focusing on contemporary art.
Edition 4 has only 2, the Kiranadar Museum and Devi Art Foundation. I don't know how many edition 5 has. Yeah. This is what I held up just now is BMW's art guide. It's a Bible of all the collections all over the world, private as well as public. That are accessible, but really only 2 in the current. In edition 5, how many do you have in India?
I think there's more because, as you know, you see more. At least we're delighted. A lot of it is coming, of course, from the private sector. I'm thinking of Abhishek Poddar and his Museum of Art and Photography, whose opening, of course, has now been postponed. In Bangalore. So these things are happening more so, but. Your question, I think, was kind of pushing in the same way that I'm thinking that there should be more, that corporations, and there are tremendously successful big corporations in India, with a global impact. Come on, do more for the local art scene. It does a lot for your image. It does a lot for your reputation. It does a lot for your visibility. There is such a thing as corporate citizenship. And it's no longer only about your core business, about the products you produce. It is about how you're being seen as a player in the society that you do successful business in. It's not enough in Germany to just, we create great cars. This is what we do. This is what we're known for. But if we were a person, what is our attitude? What do we give back? And if you understand that a brand is a piece of real estate in somebody else's mind, that piece of real estate in somebody else's mind is not only your product, but also how do you behave? How are you as a character? And I think the arts and culture is a wonderful way to show that you're engaging and empowering and enriching those that are thriving to see more art, that want to be supported, that need to be supported. So if there's more being done from the government, without those, look at India. You're the greatest democracy on the planet. I don't have to tell you. Yeah. And you are such a mashup of so many amazing cultures. It's a shame if you were to go all national. There's so many aspects.
And also it's not just about doing or giving back. I always have maintained that it's also a business tool, right? I mean, if Mukesh Ambani is sitting next to, say, major corporate from the US or Germany and wants to make a business deal, and they're talking about art or music, it does form a bond, right? So it's also a business tool. I mean,
I fully agree. Look,
that brings
agree.
you
Yeah,
closer. But besides that, I mean, I heard one of your TEDx talks in Mannheim where you talked about humanities and the role of humanities, and India is all about that, about soft skills, about this whole cultural heritage. And perhaps, I mean, corporates could just help bring that whole history into the here and now, because what is lacking here is the contemporary art space. I mean, for instance, we don't have too many museums, right, for contemporary art. So I was thinking that if a corporate even were to look at it from the standpoint of, what would benefit, not just what they're giving back to society, but what would benefit their employees or the public, not the art community, because that's perhaps seen as a privileged community, but the public at large. If you have, like Kiran Nadar started a museum, so it just enriches the lives of so many people. And I've seen now with COVID in the gallery too, people are just hungry to come back and, are constantly reaching out for appointments. So I mean, it's also very, let me, be controversial and say it's also very useful. It's not just, uh, corporate social responsibility, but it's also a very effective tool for business. I mean, you've often said that, Thomas, that um, you're doing it. BMW is doing it also for a corporate reason.
of course. Look, I mean, next year BMW is celebrating 50 years of cultural engagement. It's part of our DNA. It's part of what we are. And
Yeah,
you make it very clear, it's not just money being thrown down the drain. We don't do anything for philanthropic reasons only. Please,
yeah,
we are a business.
yeah,
So, and let's not fool ourselves. Running a gallery is a business. And it's a tough one at that.
yeah.
And if we look at the art market on a global scale, it's a $60 billion business. And yes, that is where your customers may be. That is where your clients may be. I mean, you don't have to invent anything from scratch. If you're a successful company and you're a thriving company, what are your core values when it comes to your core business? You cannot, just like throw money here and throw money there for culture. It has to come out of what you stand for, what you are. If we are considering ourselves as a technology company, of course we can offer, technology transfer. We can offer networks. We can offer know-how. We want to be at the cutting edge of what artists are doing right now with augmented reality, with artificial intelligence, because that is what we are. If you are a company, a huge steel company, there might be something of interest when it comes to your use of material, when it also comes to your
Right,
use
right.
of
Yeah,
thoughts of sustainability. If you have that, if you go delve deep into the core values of your company and translate those into the arts, then it's not only about giving, but
that's
it's, as you
amazing.
said, it's
Yeah,
about being useful and
yeah,
creating something bigger together. I'm a complete believer. And if you say, oh no, this is just for the good of the public, not true. Also look at what you can get out of it as a company. But
yeah,
if you allow me, Ranjana, one more thing. And you said that it's very important. And that is why I also believe so much in the Kochi Museris biennial. It's a people's biennial. If you're just a biennial and you fly in somewhere like a UFO and you take off again, you haven't achieved anything. Only let's say the board of trustees from big museums come and
yeah.
visit, but what do you achieve there? And that is where education comes in. And I
Yeah.
see a lot of companies doing more things towards education, doing things for younger people, trying
Yeah.
to get them interested. And I think that is what companies can achieve when it comes to the arts. I agree with your assessment here.
Coming to that point about education, Thomas, I mean, Germans are known for skilling and their emphasis on skilling. I mean, the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce is huge in that field. And I was thinking now that, with COVID and things being slow, I mean, BMW does the art prize at Art Basel and all these other things, and also the sponsorship of major events and fairs, which maybe has slowed down now because these events are not taking
Right.
place. That, do you think perhaps this kind of educating, through workshops, I mean, let's say a corporate wants to engage, right, with art. There's, I mean, we have programs here for curatorial studies in India and all kinds of things, but we don't really have any institution that teaches the nuts and bolts, exhibition making, how to, okay, I mean, a corporation may have a huge art collection, but how to professionally handle it, how to hang it, how to frame it, how to conserve it. There are so many areas where, bringing in professionalism in art could be interesting. And does BMW have that kind of expertise that they would like to share also with gallerists, that because it's still all very new relatively in India. I mean, you're engaging with a lot of gallerists of today. I recently heard something you did with Johann Koenig in Berlin, and it was just, do you find major differences in the level of art professionalism, whether in the private or the public sector in India? And is there something that BMW could do? Or perhaps now, for instance, I mean, Deutsche Bank will send their people over to help Deutsche Bank here. But I don't see it happening in a lot of companies like Siemens and others who have major art collections in at home, but they don't extend that culture or that policy to their businesses in India, even though those are huge. They have huge presences in India.
I think, again, all these are many questions wrapped into one statement.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
I
Ranjana.
mean, yes, your opinion, but it really, I mean, I think you're bringing a wonderful perspective.
I'm trying to work through this. First of all, I'm actually very happy that, and this just happened this week, that the new CEO of BMW India, Vikram Pava, just announced that all of the different foundations will be put into one big will be put under one big roof.
Yeah.
There's BMW India Financial Services, there's BMW India Leasing. So, looking at the UN Sustainable Development Goals and trying to honor those when it comes to corporate citizenship and sustainable development and the responsibility that you have for society. I'm actually very happy that, out of these many streams comes now one river where BMW India is actually looking into streamlining that a little bit more, I think, for the better good.
Yeah.
One thing I think where we are a little bit, first of all, reluctant, I would have to say, in terms of your wish list when it comes to maybe educating more in terms of the experience that we have. I think, generally speaking, I would think that Germany is a little bit reluctant to think that we can teach anybody anything, because last time we tried to do that, we were the most horrendous country on the planet. So you know what I mean? It's like, I think walking around with the baggage of our history.
No, Thomas, sorry to interrupt, but skilling is a big German thing. I mean, Indo-German Chamber of Commerce is so majorly about skilling.
Yeah, no, that is true.
Continuing education is what I mean. Continuing education.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to the arts also, we don't have a vested interest in the arts like the other companies you mentioned. We don't have an arts collection.
Right.
We work with local academies where we have plans, 30 plans around the world, to create artworks for our factories and facilities and offices and so forth, which I think is a great little outreach. We do that from China to Germany to the United States. It's let's say when you mention Art Basel and the big fairs, and of course it's very sad that they all fall apart at the moment, not happening.
Yeah.
There's little things like the Gallery Weekend in Berlin, which kind of work because they don't need a central space. So you
Yeah.
have
There's one coming up in Mumbai. So if you want to support that, it's in January. Yeah.
yeah. So
Right.
and yes, it's an art market, and I always say we don't want to end up on the bling bling side of things. We want to end up on the meaningful side of things. So I'm happy that together with Art Basel we created something like the BMW Art Journey, where actually artists can go on a journey. Only a few years ago you had this great artist, I think with a gallery with Galeriski in Bangalore, the gallery there, Ashta Bhutai, who went on a journey to look at the oral histories of many different, from Zoroastrian, I don't know what it's called, from the Zoroastrian faith to the Jewish oral tradition of the Torah. She went to Jerusalem, but also Israel, going on a big journey, but also Delhi and Varanasi and Pune and Mumbai, and she came up with so many rich traditions, and combining those and looking at those in a multicultural way that transcends boundaries and nationalities, which I thought. And then she got a great, Feroz, I think, gave her a big exhibition with her foundation. So things were happening, and also made clear what the arts can actually achieve, because in many aspects the arts are already have transcended what sometimes bogs us down. So do I think even international companies, like, I'm very proud of what we do in India. Could we always do more? Yes. But, BMW had a horrible third quarter, also based on COVID. We can only spend as much
That's
as we
true.
have, and we need to protect our core business. So I think it's going to be tough times ahead for art funding, because the companies are struggling, to tell you the truth at the
Right.
moment. And
No, that's
BMW has 130,000 employees to take care of first and
right.
foremost.
Yeah. No, that's why I meant, perhaps things which don't cost that much but are at grassroots,
Mhm.
where, expertise and know-how can be shared between India and Germany, as they are being in many fields, and whether in art professionalism there could be something. Now, for instance, I mean, there's the Humboldt Forum in Berlin, or even at the last India Art Fair, you had, Thomas, you're also on the friends circle of a lot of museums like Haus der Kunst in Munich and the Staatsgalerie Stuttgart, if I'm not mistaken. Is it? Or
No, but it's the architectural museum. I did an exhibition. I helped with an exhibition at the Staatsgalerie Stuttgart. But yeah,
okay.
I'm not trying to
So,
sit on too many
they
boards.
were here. They were here, the director, and then there was the director from the Kunsthalle in Karlsruhe. They all came for the India Art Fair in January. And so there seems to be an interest, particularly also if you look at the Humboldt Forum, and Monica Gruters had come here earlier this year or late last year. And so there could be areas where, there is exchange, uh, not necessarily where huge sums of money are involved. For instance, I mean, the Museum for Indian Art in Berlin is looking at acquisitions, but at very, very low price points by emerging artists and so on. But nonetheless, there is a movement. And again, I mean, in terms of education, it doesn't have to be huge budgets, but it's something where there could be, collaboration perhaps between Germany and India, because India just, I mean, it's more about dialogue and discussion, I think, and forums for that.
I mean, maybe it's just, my blurred point of view, and of course we're talking, but I think there's a great Indo-German relationship. I mean, we're talking because of the Indo-German Chamber of Commerce, and I love to see these things happen. I feel there's something where we can learn from each other, especially how India can actually move this huge democracy forward, and looking at what is happening in Germany, becoming more multicultural, which is so important, for a country to thrive. And so I think there's a lot to learn from each other. And as you said, and I realize that now more than ever, now that there's less money due to COVID, that it's about, what do you make of the platform? BMW has a huge visibility and outreach. We have, I don't know, millions of fans on our website. So what if we make use of that website to showcase, initiatives that are happening between Germany and India, for example, or things that are going on. Just like with the Humboldt Forum, on the advisory board, you have an amazing Indian scholar sitting on the advisory board for the Humboldt Forum. I can't come up with his name right now. You probably know.
Jay. Yeah.
I talk to him every time I'm in India.
Dr. Jane, yeah.
These things make me actually very happy, because they intertwine all of this, and they make that all the more stronger. But could there be more? I think there could always be more, and that's why the two of us are always pushing.
You bet. Yes. That's very, very true. Yeah. Yes. Is there anything you would like to add? I think I grilled you quite a bit.
Yeah, well, no, but I actually have a question also for you. Now the India Art Fair, of course, has now announced that they will postpone until 2022. I understand, we always brought, besides being partners of the Kochi Muziris Biennial, what actually helped them a lot was that we brought media along, 10, 15 media representatives from around the world, actually, that would then write major pieces about what is happening in India with contemporary art. Oftentimes these things, as you said before, they help more. They don't only have to do with budget, but they have to do with a network. And if you get a 2-page article in the French Le Monde about the Kochi Muziris Biennial, this doesn't put it on the map, but it enhances the visibility and what is going on. And I think that we have to, and so it's a shame that all these things are not happening. So we have to rethink about what it is that we can do while these things are not taking place. My question to you would be, because I understand, all the galleries I speak to, some of them say, look, finally, we have people come in from our own city looking at galleries again, because all the fairs are not happening. So they have a lot more people coming in.
Yes.
Others are struggling. How is it for you? You're on a mission. You're not only running a gallery, but you have a mission. And how's that happening?
Yeah, also one of the things you had said in this TEDx talk was about the focus and the concentration, and how social media takes away from that, which is true. But I've just realized in the last couple of weeks, Thomas, that it's because of social media that more and more people are buying art. And I'm finding that I'm selling art to a completely new audience right here in my city, in my backyard, and they're reaching out because of Instagram and other such platforms, and getting interested, being bitten by the bug, and actually in a span of like a couple of months, they're actually taking the leap and buying, not just one piece, but maybe even 2 or 3, and are enthusiastic and excited. So really, I'm surprised at how much, of a potential audience we have in India. And it's remarkable, despite the lack of public spaces and venues and museums, that they're still engaging and educating themselves and are curious. So really, I guess you're right. We're cultivating our own backyards now. And then, we're doing collectives like In Touch. There are 12 galleries in India and Dubai who have come together to do this online platform called In Touch, where we make curated presentations and then launch them collectively to our databases. And all of that is, just kind of fueling the market. But again, the thing is that what about the public at large, I mean, how do we reach out to them? And I think if the government is not going to play that role, then really it's the corporates, coming back to that, that would be able to fuel that. And, I know that, for instance, when Deutsche Bank made their art collection here, and, employees started getting interested in buying art, and then it just, has a ripple effect.
Mhm. I mean,
It's like a museum. The Deutsche Bank collection is like walking into a museum.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess while we are wrapping this up, I'm happy about the assessment of your gallery, and I'm happy that these things are going on now. I mean, a lot of people now realize what you can do with social media that has been around, although it's oftentimes a digression and it's diverting us from what is
Yes,
important. It is
yes.
also a great tool, and I think many
I
of these
totally
tools.
agree with you. It's very, distracting, but look at how it can work.
No, many of these things I think will also remain. I'm sometimes a little bit careful about this, because especially when we look at contemporary artists, everybody's used to social media being for free. So artists, put everything online for free, and again, there's no business case for them, because at the end of the day, it's always the artist that keeps struggling. I always tell every young artist in my classes,
Yeah,
find a job, because only, even in Germany, 1 in 100
yeah,
can live of their artwork. But
right.
2 weeks ago, when we hosted a big concert, there was the great violinist Ann-Sophie Mutter, and
Yeah,
I had a chance to interview her briefly, and
yeah,
she said she had also suffered from COVID herself,
really.
and had gotten through it. And she said, "Look, art is love, art is life, art is the remedy." I mean, she said it with music, but she meant the arts, of course. But that's what I think. I mean, these times are dire times, and but I know that art doesn't need much to survive. We just need to also have the public focus on arts as a keyhole to a world opening up to something else, which actually gets you through times of doubt and dire times. So just one more thing, and I'm done, but I'm just a curious person, and I've been looking at you now for over half an hour, but also have been looking at the artwork behind you. Tell me something about this artwork, please.
Well, Jyoti Basu, he's quite a superstar. He's somebody who sadly gave up painting too early in his career. So he lives and works in Baroda. He's now about 60 years old. And this is a work that he made in 2005, so around 15 years ago, called Sleepless Nights and Sleeping Ancestors, or something like that. And I'll give you a better look at it. Um,
Very
you know,
intricate work.
yeah, he just creates an entire universe, and this was a painting we showed at the Thomas Irving Gallery in New York, and he's an artist we also showed at the House of World Cultures in Berlin, and so on. But he just decided that if he doesn't have anything more to say, he's going to say nothing at all. And so he stopped painting. And in fact, Peter Nagy said to me, he said that is the biggest shame that Jyoti Basu stopped painting, because he'd also shown his work at Nature Mort in Delhi, something we collaborated on. So, and he's the first. Jyoti Basu is the very first artist we started with, when we started our art business.
But there's a great tradition of people stopping to work at a certain point. You had the great French poet Arthur Rimbaud saying, "I stop writing poetry now." Marcel Duchamp stopped painting
Yeah.
in 1918. So he's part of a big tradition there. But I'm happy that you shared that with us, Ranjana. I guess that concludes our little talk, right?
That concludes, Thomas. Thank you so very much. I mean, it's been just fantastic speaking with you,
Thank
and more
you.
power to BMW.
And to the arts in India, please. Thank
Okay.
you. All the best.
Bye. All the best. Bye bye.
Bye.